June 26, 1941. The world holds its breath as the darkness of human ambition unfolds across the Eastern Front. While millions slept, Hitler's war machine silently positioned itself along a 1,000-mile border. Operation Barbarossa had begun. But hidden within this catastrophic invasion lies a rarely told tale, one that reveals the darkest corners of human nature during humanity's bloodiest conflict. What transforms an ordinary man into a monster? What twisted path turns a prisoner into an architect of mass murder? Today we unravel the enigmatic and disturbing story of Bronislav Kaminski, a man who rose from obscurity, built his own kingdom within Nazi-occupied territory, and whose name would become synonymous with unspeakable cruelty. As we journey through this shadowed chapter of history, you will discover how one man's fateful choices created ripples of suffering that claimed tens of thousands of innocent lives. The tale of Kaminski teaches us not just about a forgotten collaboration, but about the eternal human capacity for both resistance and complicity when facing the abyss. Born in 1899 during the twilight of Imperial Russia, Bronislav Kaminski emerged from a symbolic crossroads of identities. His father was an ethnic Pole with Belarusian roots, his mother an ethnic German. Though he identified as Russian, this cultural intersection would later prove crucial to his alliance with Nazi invaders. But who was this man before he became a monster? Before the war, Kaminski worked as an engineer, an ordinary professional with no hint of the darkness that would later consume him. Yet beneath this unremarkable exterior, resentment simmered. The Soviet system had marked him as an enemy, imprisoned him during Stalin's Great Purge of 1937. For 3 years, he languished in a Soviet gulag, his hatred deepening with each passing day. Little did anyone suspect that this seemingly insignificant prisoner would soon control the lives and deaths of hundreds of thousands. When German forces swept into the Soviet Union that fateful summer of 1941, they created not just a military invasion, but a moral vacuum, a space where men like Kaminski could reinvent themselves regardless of the cost to others. In the small township of Lokot, near the city of Bryansk, Kaminski made a decision that would seal his place in history's darkest chapters. While others fled or resisted the German advance, Kaminski approached the Nazi authorities with an unusual proposal. He would establish a local administration loyal to the Reich. The Germans, seeking to minimize their administrative burden in occupied territories, readily accepted. This fateful handshake birthed what would become known as the Lokot Republic, a semi-autonomous region where approximately 500,000 Soviet citizens would live under Kaminski's increasingly tyrannical rule. What drove this man to betray his own people? Was it revenge against the Soviet system that had imprisoned him? Was it raw ambition, or something darker still? With remarkable speed, Kaminski's militia expanded from a few hundred men to nearly 10,000 strong. Armed with captured Soviet tanks, artillery, and wearing German uniforms, the Kaminski Brigade evolved into a significant military force, one that answered not to standard German military command, but primarily to Kaminski himself. Private enterprise flourished, a calculated departure from Soviet collectivization. But beneath this veneer of administration lay a brutal reality. Kaminski's true function was to terrorize the local population and crush any resistance to German occupation. As his power grew, so did his cruelty. Those who opposed him simply disappeared. Villages suspected of harboring partisans were burned to the ground. His men became known not for fighting Soviet forces, but for their savagery against civilians, men, women, and children whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. By 1943, as German fortunes on the battlefield began to wane, Kaminski's methods grew increasingly brutal, not out of military necessity, but from a toxic blend of personal ambition, ideological fervor, and profound moral corruption. According to post-war investigations, approximately 10,000 civilians perished at the hands of Kaminski's forces during their control of the Lokot region alone. As Soviet counteroffensives pushed back German lines in mid-1943, Kaminski's domain began to crumble. Facing the advancing Red Army, he orchestrated a mass evacuation around 30,000 people, including his militia, their families, and administrative personnel, to the Lapel area in Belarus. But something was changing. His men, once loyal, began to desert. Was it the certainty of German defeat, or had some remnant of conscience finally awakened? When Major Tarasov attempted to defect with his entire unit, his response revealed the full measure of his depravity. Witnesses later described how Kaminski strangled Tarasov, and ate others with his bare hands before their assembled men. A grotesque display meant to deter further defections. Yet even this could not stem the tide. Approximately 200 soldiers deserted. The brigade had lost two-thirds of its personnel, forcing Kaminski to recruit from increasingly desperate sources: Belarusian police auxiliaries, prisoners of war, and even convicted criminals. As his control wavered, what would this desperate man do when given one final opportunity to demonstrate his loyalty to his Nazi masters? August 1944. The people of Warsaw rise up against their German occupiers, fighting for freedom with whatever weapons they can find. As the Polish Home Army battles for liberation, the German command deploys Kaminski's 700-man force to help crush the uprising. What followed was not warfare, but systematic extermination. In the Ochota district of Warsaw, men unleashed hell upon the civilian population. Women were assaulted in broad daylight. Families were massacred in their homes. Hospitals were set ablaze with patients still inside. Medical staff who tried to intervene were tortured and executed on the spot. One surviving German radio transmission captures the scale of the horror. A German officer asked his superiors, "What should I do with the civilians? We have more prisoners than ammunition to kill them." The solution they found defies comprehension. When Kaminski's men discovered a daycare facility with 500 children, they beat and stabbed them to death with rifle butts and bayonets, saving bullets for combat. Civilians perished in the Ochota district alone, nearly all victims of Kaminski's men. His brigade participated in the even more devastating Wola massacre. Thousand civilians were methodically murdered over just 2 days under orders to kill anything that moves. This was not combat. This was the deliberate unleashing of mankind. But even the Nazis had limits to what atrocities they would openly associate with. As reports of Kaminski's men looting, raping, and murdering indiscriminately reached SS headquarters, a decision was made. On August 28, 1944, Bronislav Kaminski was summoned to a meeting in the Polish city of Łódź. He never returned. The 45-year-old was executed by the very SS officials he had served so faithfully. The official reason, theft, seems almost trivial against the backdrop of his crimes. He had hoarded looted valuables from Warsaw instead of surrendering them to the SS hierarchy. To maintain control over his men, the SS fabricated an elaborate cover story, claiming Polish partisans had killed their commander. They staged a scene, pushing Kaminski's car into a ditch, riddling it with bullets, and smearing it with animal blood to simulate an ambush. The betrayer had been betrayed. The true reasons for Kaminski's execution remain debated by historians. Was he eliminated as an embarrassment, as a witness to Nazi crimes, as a political liability? Whatever the truth, his death bore the same arbitrary quality that characterized his rule: violent, secretive, and without justice. Bronislav Kaminski's journey from Soviet prisoner to Nazi executioner reveals the dangerous allure of power without accountability. His story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. What safeguards protect society from such darkness? What invisible lines must we fortify within our own moral compasses? In studying figures like Kaminski, we confront not just historical facts, but the eternal question that haunts every generation. When faced with moral darkness, will we resist, remain silent, or become complicit? As we close this chapter of hidden history, remember, the line between civilization and barbarism has never been as thick as we might hope. It requires constant vigilance, unwavering moral courage, and the wisdom to recognize the first steps toward the abyss. Thank you for joining us on this journey into one of history's darkest corridors. If you found value in this exploration, please like and subscribe for more untold stories from the past. Remember, we study history not just to know what happened, but to understand who we are,